to Ty and that guy. I'm Wes Chatham, and this is my good buddy, good pal, sometimes lover, Ty Franck. Hello, Ty.
How you doing, man? You must be exhausted.
Yeah, I'm a little tired, but seeing you is like a shot of adrenaline, shot of adrenaline in my loins. And it gives me a little, it's like, it gets me going. You know what I'm saying?
You know what? It's nice that as long as we've been hanging out together, I'm still a shot of adrenaline to your loins. You haven't got tired of me? Not bored.
You know what else is it? You know what else is shot of adrenaline to my loins is we got an old time regular back to hang out with us. His name is Clinton Trucks. Say hello, Clint. Say hello to all your adoring fans.
Oh, they're not adoring. I've dipped into the goddamn Discord. I know Joseph's in there complaining about my mic quality.
You're damn right.
Everybody be nice to Clint. Clint can't help it that he got this thing started and then abandoned us like orphan children, ran off to go do his own thing while we flailed around in the darkness. That's not his fault.
I put you in a basket and set you floating down the Nile.
And then he just kicks back on every now and then just to hurl insults.
It's like that deadbeat dad who like abandons his family and then every 3 years he shows up with a present and wants you to be like excited to see him. Yeah, that's Clint.
Yeah,
to be clear, I'm coming back and I'm trying out. Are you guys rich yet? And when you're not, I leave.
Every now and then the dad checks back in and like takes the kid to an arcade or something and thinks that that'll make up for the 3 years of neglect.
Yeah, exactly.
and let him smoke a cigarette or see a boob or something. I'm not talking from personal experience or anything, but today's an exciting day because we're talking about what, Ty?
Well, we're talking about Nope, because we decided that we had a bunch of other stuff we could have talked about and we were kicking the ideas around. And then just at this thing happened where everybody said, we've all seen Nope, right? We should talk about Nope. So we're going to talk about that as we are Jordan Peele fans. So,
yeah, we're kicking off, this is going to be in October when it airs. So we're kicking off Spooky Month. And Ty and I are going to dive into movies that, probably, our number one genre mixed with other genres, scary movies, thrillers, horror, suspense. And for me right now, I should start this podcast with saying that I'm a huge Jordan Peele fan. I feel like he's a man after my own heart. Everything that he loves, the fact that he brought back the Twilight Zone, that he writes the Twilight Zone, Get Out was, to me, like as a horror fan, that movie was a love letter to the genre, but also innovated the genre. All in the same time. And then Us, I was a fan of Us. I liked Get Out a little bit better, but I enjoyed Us. And then we're going to talk about the movie today. So I just want to start with how much I love Jordan Peele, because when I love somebody and I'm a fan of somebody and I want them to work, it does color the way I look at their films, the way I look at their movies. And two things that struck me right away from this movie that just got me on board is Jordan Peele, right? And then the Spielbergian atmosphere that we walked in to the very beginning of the film. And that tone and the way that it was shot and the visual and the Close Encounters vibe and in the beginning and the spookiness in the sky and what is that thing? And then you start with David Keith, who's like one of my favorites. So I was on board right away. And what did you think about that?
The movie overall, I found the movie intriguing because it was doing a number of things that were sort of should have been at cross purposes for me in a script, but I think it mostly worked. And so all of Jordan Peele's movies so far, all of them are about being eaten by Hollywood. like he is making movies about what the experience of being eaten by Hollywood is. And he's done it 3 times now, and he's done 3 different versions of it. I've enjoyed them all. So there's that movie, and it's specifically, because he's a black filmmaker, and he's a black filmmaker who really focuses on, I think, the issues of being a black filmmaker and being a black man in Hollywood and that kind of stuff. That's sort of his big area of interest, understandably. And so it's like a movie about being eaten by Hollywood, but also a movie about what it's like to be a black man in Hollywood and how you can be both celebrated and ignored at the same time. All of his movies talk about that, but Nope, I think, is really specifically about that. And then the third thing that it's about is this weird maybe it's a horror movie, but maybe it's just like a Close Encounter kind of movie. Like maybe it's aliens, but maybe it isn't. That's the third thing that's going on. And like, if I describe that if I pitch that to you, it'll seem like too many things. You'll be like, that's too many things to put in one movie. But somehow he manages to jam all of that in here, and almost all of it winds up working. So yeah, I mean, he's an interesting filmmaker, no doubt.
And so if I give my overall, saying why I was colored, by my fanship of Jordan and also the atmosphere and everything that triggered me, but it was a powerful experience that I haven't that I'm working on dissecting, right? So watching it really affected me. And it's one of those movies that I woke up thinking about the next day, and I'm constantly thinking about it. Like, I haven't really, my initial, experience was I enjoyed it and I thought it worked. And we'll go in through what, I really loved and what things I didn't like so much. But the more I think about it and the more I kind of go back and revisit it, I'm realizing like this movie has a bigger impact on me than my initial thoughts of when I first saw it. It's so complex and nuanced and vast, and it's hyperbole and symbolism and things like that it's taking a second to digest. But what I think, Ty, and I agree with you, there's a lot of big ideas within this, and there's certain things like if you were writing a screenplay, there's certain things that you'd like, well, I need to tie this in at some point, or if I introduce this character, whatever. But what I think is like for me, and in my interpretation of it, was the emotional center, the through line that made all those big ideas work was really a focus on grief. And you have David Keith in the beginning, such smart casting, right? You cast somebody that everybody has all these great memories of, and these, of the movies that he was in, and he's beloved, and, a beloved character, a fantastic actor, and he's charismatic. He's almost the two sides of the siblings' personality, because he has the charisma of Keke Palmer, but he also has the duty of Daniel, right? Like the doing the things. And so they're kind of like separate. They have like two of the strengths and within the siblings, but together they make, David Keith. But when he dies, and it's that mysterious death of things coming out of the sky, there's that thing within grief when somebody dies mysteriously, and that obsession about, I need to see what this is. I need to know what this is. And for me, like, that was one of the main thrusts of them getting to the mystery of what that cloud is, what this thing is, because he knows eternally, like, this thing is connected to his father's death. And like, that's the thing that, propels that emotion. And then you're emotionally connected to it. You're emotionally connected to him and Keke Palmer's and their journey going through.
Yeah. And I think it was really smart casting for the father, because, he has the ultimate dad voice, right? He's got that deep, comforting, warm voice where, like, if you were a little kid and you were scared, that's the voice you want telling you everything is okay. And it's instantly recognizable. So the minute he's on screen, we're like you said, all the memories of all the movies he's been in come flooding back. All of our affection for him comes back so quickly. And then when the tragic accident happens and he dies, it's still fairly early in the movie. He doesn't feel like a character who wasn't fully fleshed out, because our minds added all the flesh because of our affection for him as an actor and all the parts he's played and that amazing voice. So it was okay that he went out of the movie fairly quickly, because you understand why the grief drives his son, because we were feeling that grief as well.
It wouldn't have had the same impact if it was an actor that nobody knew or nobody had a history or recognized with and they died. But somebody like David Keith coming on and dying and going through that. But I also, there's a lot of inside baseball, inside Hollywood. There's a lot of things that, this is a love letter to crew. And what's funny is I'm working on something now, and they have a lot of horses on the set, and the horse wranglers are there. And there's like a renewed focus on the horse wranglers because everybody saw Nope. And so, it's funny because they come on and I mean, I like when I first saw him, and I was like, "Hey, I just saw Nope," and like and they're like, "Yeah, like we've been, people have been coming up and talk to us," and I was like, "Where are you guys located? And like, what is your whole, like, what is your whole business model? Like, what is your whole thing? And how many movies did you work on? How many shows did you work on?" And so it's kind of cool because there's like a renewed, like a special interest of like on set with these wranglers and what they do.
Well, and horse wrangling specifically is that's a tough job because you have to get the horse to perform in the part. But the other thing is, so I was on set some with a show that had a bunch of horses, and you quickly realize if they're not controlled, and they show this in the movie in Nope, how quickly that horse goes from performer to rampant danger. On the set that I was on, at one point they were moving the cameras around, and one of the cameramen who had a Steadicam rig walked past, and the horse just reared up, and it was actually one of the actors. The actor reached out and grabbed the cameraman and yanked him forward, and that horse came down right where he was standing. And they're wild animals. They need, they're confused by all the stuff that's going on around them. So those wranglers, it's not just getting the horse to perform, but it's also, keeping the horse safe for everybody else on the crew. It's a pretty big job.
Horses are also like integral to filmmaking since its inception. Like among the very first films ever done were of horses, and Hollywood's history of how it has treated horses is pretty abominable. So I'm glad to see that you saw those changes. I worked on the Coen Brothers movie True Grit, and the wranglers there were like studs. Like you couldn't really tell them what to do, because there's now a lot of laws about what you can do with a horse. Like you can't distress a horse. One of my main jobs on that movie was finding horse robots, which is horses that we could put in situations that we couldn't put a real horse in. And we didn't want to build a bunch from scratch. So we got a bunch of ones that were made originally for the Tom Cruise movie, The Last Samurai.
Oh, wow.
Do you think Clint told that whole story because he wanted to let us know that he worked with the Coen Brothers on True Grit?
Yes.
Several times, guys. No big deal.
But you know what, though? It worked. I was still even though I knew he was trying to impress me, it still worked. It was still impressive.
Yeah, you had me at True Grit, and I was just like imagining what it was like being on set there. But somebody who's been in Hollywood for a really long time, I really enjoy these like self-examinations of what Hollywood is. And like what Clint said was, like horses being treated horrible on set. It's almost like you can just have a blank being treated horrible by Hollywood, and you can fill in that blank with anything, because everything has been treated horrible by Hollywood. But I love the commentary on things like this. And, we talk about, I've said many times in the podcast, I always feel like sometimes if a movie is really impactful and meaningful and has really something to say, is I feel like I'm a better person for having watched it, whether it's warning me about something or revealing something within myself or anything like that. What's interesting is that people come to Hollywood with this powerful dream, but it's also motivated with the need to be loved, with the need. It's on the dream. It's the dream of, like a purity of storytelling, and people might have a pure love of storytelling, but then it's also the need to be validated, the need to be loved. So then it's all the dysfunction that's wrapped up with that. And then there's a monetary value that is all wrapped up into that puts food on the table for your family. And it's such a powerful force that when people get near it, it's like Gollum in the Ring. It's like you see people change. You see the blood in the water. If you're around like a super celebrity and you're friends with a super celebrity, you see it's like a reality distortion field that gets around them. And what I find that with young Hollywood or child actors is, if your identity is malleable, if you don't know who you are, if you're not fully developed as a person, it is the worst place to be. It is such a destructive place to your identity, to your psyche, to who you are. And I think that Jupe, is such an interesting example, and it's such a powerful statement that he's making, because when they do the tour, we'll get to what happens with the monkey, with the ape after this. But when he goes through tour, and you realize like he was through this just tragic, terrible moment. And at the end, you realize that he's using this that he's so focused and been so shaped and molded by being a child star when he was younger, that he's using this tragedy to still draw focus onto him. That is still like, this is something that he's using to continue. And even though that his career's fizzled out, that he created this whole park to be able to create this thing of still harnessing being in some way the center, a star. And and you look at it and you're like, oh my God, that's so unhealthy, and the motorcycle guy with the mirror helmet, and it's like, fuck, am I looking at myself in this stuff? Like it's a crazy thing. But when he brings up the Saturday Night Live skit, like he doesn't talk about the impact that he had. When he brings up like how Chris Kattan was fucking great in that skit, it's spooky.
That park, that sad little theme park or whatever it is such a perfect metaphor of clinging to faded glory. He was the child star. He was in this hit show, all this. Then he has this tragic thing happen. And for some amount of time, he was absolutely the center of attention. Mm-hmm. And now what he has is he's got this like you said, he's clinging to that. He's got this faded little, sad little wannabe theme park, so he can get like 8 people to sit in the stands and listen to his story.
Yeah.
Right. Because when they show the people are there, there's like 8 people in the audience. There's like hardly anybody there. But, it's that clinging to this dead dream, but you just cling. You're just never going to let it go.
And everything in his life is a spectacle. Everything is pointing towards, he comes across an alien, and his thing isn't like, let me report this and like no, he's like, how do I make this enhance my show? I'm going to feed this thing horses and bring it in and try to control it or whatever. Let it enhance what it is for me. And even his poor guest star, which this was like, in terms of a horror moment, when she's sitting in the stands and she doesn't even have a face anymore. And she has a picture of herself.
Yes.
Because she can't, and she's still like holding on to that thing that gave her value, that she was seen, and she's still a part of that culture.
So I had this moment watching the movie because I saw it twice. I saw it and then I watched it again with my wife. The second time, as I was sitting there watching that, thinking, oh my God, the metaphors are so pointed in this, because it's Hollywood literally stripped her of her identity. Literally stripped her of her identity, but she buys a t-shirt with her identity on it. Like, holy shit. Like, could you have a more pointed metaphor than that? Like, I don't know what else you could do. Right. But this movie is full of that kind of stuff where it's over and over again. It's people clinging. You've said this before when we talked about acting and your experience in Hollywood. You talked about it like, once you get a taste of it, it's a drug, and the attention and that kind of stuff. And what we're seeing here is the people who got addicted, and now they're smashing up Oxy in the bathroom and snorting it off the back of a toilet, because that's the only high they can still get. It's cheap and it's tawdry and it's sad, but it's the high they can still get, so they're still doing it. Yeah.
And they crawl deeper and deeper into a pit, with this thing. And in some ways, the chimpanzee that went berserk on set, in some ways, the chimpanzee was enlightened, right? Because the chimpanzee was like, "Fuck you guys! Like you're using me and exploiting me for money, for fame. You're taking something wild and exotic and then putting humans' clothes on it, and just there's no thought to my nature. There's no thought to about who I am as a being and where I thrive and what's good for my life. There's, I'm a living thing that is just completely, you're using and manipulating for your own purposes, for your own, means. And it rebels and rages against that, which I think is one of the great horror sequences. I mean, that scene.
Oh, yeah.
That is the way that it's shot, the tension, the suspense, where you don't clearly know what's going on, but you know something fucking terrible is going on. You've seen it from the point of view of that terrified kid. And when the monkey comes around and he's gazing and he looks and he makes eye contact with the kid, this is what I love movies for. Like moments like that where you're like, the adrenaline you get from that is like, holy shit. And it walks over there and you think it's going to rip this boy's face off, but it holds out its hand to touch the boy because he realizes that him and the boy's just being exploited just like he's being exploited. And so there's a camaraderie or a connection that the monkey has, what makes you realize that the monkey's aware of this great sin that's happening to him, but the boy's not aware. The boy has no idea, and then they come in and they shoot the ape, which is the chimpanzee. To be honest, like when I saw that, I was like, I want to see a movie about that monkey. That's some scary shit, man. About that ape. God damn it.
Well, they've made a number of like killer ape stories in the past, but I think again, this is the sort of the story behind the story. Everyone in that room is exploited. You got 2 child actors. We won't let a kid sign a contract to buy a car until they're 16. But we will let them sign a contract to be an actor and work, 10 hours a day and all the shit that goes with Hollywood. We'll let them sign that at any age, or their guardian will sign it for them, right? So you got 2 child actors in there, and this ape, all 3 of them are victims of exploitation. The only difference is that the ape can fight back, and so it chooses to do so. So it chooses to fight back. It's also setting up a moment for later, because part of the realization we get as we go through this movie, and by the way, Joseph, you should probably put a warning at the beginning as that this thing is just going to be full of spoilers. Part of the story that this scene with the monkey or the ape is telling is when you're facing off with a predator, an apex predator, you don't stare it in the eye, right? That's a challenge. And so when the ape comes over to the kid, there's that veil hanging between them. It's the edge of the tablecloth, so that he can look at the ape and the ape's looking back at him, but it doesn't feel like direct eye contact. And so the ape just fist bumps him instead of tearing him up. And that story of staring somebody in the eye as a challenge is part of the through plot of this movie. And they established it here, but they do it under the cover of, here's a whole bunch of horrible shit about Hollywood in the metaphor of this ape going crazy and murdering a kid, or not murdering, but tearing a kid's face off. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you talk, you're talking about making eye contact. So let's talk a little bit about the monster, the jean jacket. We went from like a Close Encounters kind of atmosphere and everything, and then it started feeling like Jaws. Like at that point,
yeah.
and the sky was the sea. What did you think of the monster when you first kind of realized like what it was, the rules around it? Overall, what did you think about it?
I wasn't sure. Initially, the sort of flying saucer shaped thing that sucks people up and eats them, I wasn't sure if I liked that or not, but I was willing to see where it went. By the end, I don't know if I loved it as a monster, but I thought it was awe-inspiring as a design. Mm-hmm. The way that thing just unfolded into that mat, like if there was a creature that was designed to just live in the air, that's what it would look like. Mm-hmm. It looked like the sails of a clipper ship. You just got rid of the ship. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I thought all of that stuff was very cool by the end. Yeah. And there's a twist thing happening there with setting you up to think it's a flying saucer at the beginning, and then the two kids that show up with the alien masks on. You had to scare him in the barn.
For me, there was something interesting at first about it that the flying saucer was the alien. Right. It was an animal like flying saucer. So it was a flying saucer movie, but the flying saucer was the alien. It was the beast. And I thought, not staring in the eye, it was very animalistic and had animal type, rules around it, which was kind of cool. In terms of the monster's journey, something about the third act, all of the deep layers within the movie are really working profound on me. And then you have just the straight entertainment layer, right? The straight like fun Jaws, Close Encounters, the thing coming down, like the straight thing. And all the way up to kind of like the third act when it really started kind of becoming, when it turned into that sails ship thing, in the air or whatever, it didn't pay off for me as much as I anticipated it to. It wasn't as scary, I felt like. It wasn't as scary as like Jaws or something like that, and also too, like the idea of like, just don't look at it in the eye. Whenever there's a moment where I'm like, well, you just don't look at it in the eyes. Because the reason this movie's called Nope, and the reason when I first started watching, I thought about you, Ty, because we always talk about in horror movies, when people behave the way that you would behave in a movie, it automatically becomes so much better, right? And like even when he saw those kids and he's like, nope, and he's like takes off running and stuff, gets out his phone or whatever. That really worked for me, and I like that idea, and I thought Jordan Peele was really smart to kind of pull that in, and especially like horror fans, realizing like people want to see people behave the way that they would behave in a movie. But once I realized like, oh, you just wait, if you learn not to look at it in the eyes, like if you just don't look at it in the eyes, it's not going to attack you, then for me, a lot of the fear goes away, a lot of the dread, a lot of the tension goes away.
Well, it was still going to eat people. Like it just, even if you're not looking it in the eye, it might decide to eat you if it's hungry. I
didn't get that. I got like,
it's still eating stuff. They definitely seem to be implying that it has to eat to live. It's been eating horses and stuff.
So it'll eat you if it's hungry or if you look at it in the eyes. So you still could get.
It's sort of like if you're on this, you were talking about lions earlier. If you're on the savannah and you run into a lion, if that lion thinks that you're a threat or that you're infringing on its territory or whatever, it might kill you. If it's hungry, it might kill you. But it's entirely possible to walk past a lion that isn't hungry, doesn't feel threatened or whatever, and it'll just let you walk past. It doesn't, it's not going to kill you just for the fun of it. But if you stare a lion in the eye, you're definitely increasing your chances that even if it's not hungry, it might, use you to make a lesson to everybody else. Because almost all predatory species have binocular vision. They have their eyes on the same side of their head. And that's so that we have good 3D perception, right? It's so that we have good depth perception. Whereas most prey animals have their eyes shifted off to the side so that they have a wider field of view. So they get worse depth perception, but a wider field of view so they can see what's going on around them. And that's just generic evolutionary stuff. But one of the side effects of that is that most prey animals have evolved to fear things that have their eyes pointing forward. So if a deer sees you, or it sees like a donkey or something, the deer sees you as a threat and it doesn't see the donkey as a threat, even though you guys are about the same size. The difference is the donkey has side prey vision, and you have eyes on, that are on the front of your face like a predator. And that's sort of evolutionarily built in. So when two predatory animals see each other, they tend to recognize each other. Like something with predatory eyes sees something else with predatory eyes. They know. They're like, oh, that's another predator like me. And so I think that's a long way of saying, I think what they were implying here is that this thing is a predator. It's going to eat some stuff. If it's not hungry, it might just leave you alone. But if you're staring at it, it recognizes you as a potential threat, and it's going to come kill you to prove a point. Is at least the sense that I got.
Yeah, but there's moments where things were looking at it and it came and they would turn their head and then it would leave them alone.
Yeah. And in the wild, doing that is a submission move.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, oh, but you're saying if it's hungry, it's going to eat you anyway. Even if you turn your eyes.
It might eat you anyway if it's hungry. I mean, if a predator comes charging at you and you turn away, sometimes that can make you look like prey and then they come eat you. That's bad. But other times it'll strike them as like a submission thing. Like you're the superior, you're the apex predator, I'm submitting. And then they'll leave, or they'll leave you alone.
If a bear's coming after me, I'm going to be like, wait, what was that Ty was telling me? If I turn around and act like, but then I might look like prey and that might be a bad thing. Like trying to figure it out as the bear's coming.
my favorite thing about the bears is, so my brother-in-law lived in Alaska and did a lot of hiking and nature stuff out there. And he was talking to one of the rangers out there, and he was saying, yeah, there's been some bears, so keep an eye out. And some third person was there who doesn't live in Alaska. Is like, what do I do if I see a bear? And the ranger's like, well, if it's a black bear, what you can do is you can pick up some sticks, you can bang on the ground, you can try to make yourself seem really tall, you can growl and yell. And they're like, sometimes that'll scare the black bear away. If you can't get away, sometimes it'll scare it away. Like, well, what do you do if you see a grizzly? And he's like, I don't know, pray. Like, because I'm telling you, banging sticks together doesn't work on a grizzly. No matter how much you bang some sticks together, the grizzly's like, no, I'm still the apex predator.
Yeah. I mean, even fucking Predator didn't scare the bear.
No. The grizzly's like, no, I'm not scared of anything. So yes, I'm gonna agree with you that I think the rules are not very clearly laid out. They're a little nebulous in this. The rules of how this monster works and what makes it attack you and what makes it not attack you kind of seem to fluctuate as the plot goes on. And honestly, I think the monster itself is the least thought out part of this movie.
Yeah.
I think the monster is a bit of a MacGuffin. It's not particularly well thought out. You only realize that when you think of how meticulously well thought out everything else is.
And I guess that was what I was trying to articulate earlier was I was saying is like so much about this movie works on so many different levels, but the pure fun aspect of it, the pure Jaws, like, die, you son of a bitch, and he shoots the thing and it blows up. Like that wasn't there on that level for me as much as everything else was, because it was so well, like Hoyt, the cinematographer, and the way that it was lit, the art direction, was so smart, so well done, and so interesting. And he can, and Peele can construct a scene. Yeah. I mean, you think about, like we talked about the chimpanzee scene. Like, I think that was brilliantly told, and the suspense and mystery, and how you learned everything that you were supposed to learn when you were supposed to learn it. And even the kids with the alien masks that was kind of, and sometimes I don't like those false danger things where you create this really great spooky thing and then it's like, oh, it's just a kid with a mask and they run off or whatever. Sometimes I don't like it. Sometimes I do. This one, I didn't mind it. I thought it was fun.
Well, you know why this one is okay. This one is okay because he punches that kid in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that whole thing was like, that was really great. Yeah, that was really great.
I think one of the most horrifying things I've seen on film in the last couple of years that has no gore in it is just the little tableau that he sets up of the kid under the table hiding, looking out, and all he can see is some like set furniture and then 2 legs and 2 feet of the little girl poking out.
Right.
As she's laying there. And then you see the chimp go over and you just see the chimp pounding and you see the feet kicking.
Oh, gosh.
And it was so horrifying and so creepy. And that is a beautifully constructed shot, because none of us wants to see a little girl getting her face ripped off by a chimp, but he tells you everything you need to know without showing you that. And it's just beautifully constructed.
Do you know the truth? I think it's called Trevor the chimp. We talked a little bit about the beginning. Do you remember
Travis.
that story? Travis.
Travis, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lady who had the pet chimp and it decided to go nuts and tear her face off. Yeah, I remember reading that story when it came out, or when it happened.
Clint's terrified of chimpanzees.
As he should be.
Yeah, they're fucking horrible. Did you know that Jane Goodall's, despite the fact she doesn't want chimps to be exterminated, she wants chimps to thrive. She says she went to study chimps and thought they were like us but only nicer, but instead says we inherited our dark evil side from them. That's how fucking bad chimps are. They're the worst.
Wait, I didn't even know that about Jane Goodall. That's interesting that she would say that.
She also raised her son amongst chimps, and he grew up hating chimps. Just hates them.
We talked a little bit about this, but I remember watching this documentary about how chimps would be so cruel to like the weaker chimps in their group, and also how they would hunt. They'll go in hunting groups. Like there was a tribe of chimps that would go in hunting groups to kill other chimps, from other tribes, but not to eat them, not to anything, just for the barbarian satisfaction of killing another chimp.
Yeah. So if the listeners at home, if you're thinking about getting a chimpanzee as a pet, you should not do that.
Yeah. You should get a tiger or something safer.
And chimps are like the size of like children. And so people think that means they're safe, but they are insanely fucking strong.
Yeah. They're like 5 times as strong as, men. Another thing that I think is motivating them, tracking down the filmmaker, like the Quint character that comes in, the salty guy that knows how to get the shot and everything. Yeah. That's very much like Jaws, like bringing in Quint, the salty dog. But, they make a point, in the beginning, you see, they talk about their great-great-great-grandfather was the guy in the first ever film when he's racing the horse. And the photographer went on in infamy, and the writer was forgotten. And, I heard Jordan Peele talk about like how many black cowboys were forgotten in the past. And, it was even Hi-Yo Silver, what's his name?
Lone Ranger.
Even the
Bass Reeves.
The Lone Ranger was based off Bass Reeves. So them getting the film, that Oprah shot, or what they're talking about, is that there's an opportunity here to find this thing and grade it, but they're determined to not be forgotten the way that so many before them have. And that's kind of one of the motivating factors behind what they're doing.
I think that is part of what the story is about. So you've got people like Jupiter clinging to faded glory, right? Clinging to the past, trying to hang on to that drug of fame and adulation, and all the things that Hollywood has done to those 2 kids. And then you've got the main characters and their horse ranch, and the way that Hollywood can use you up and then just forget you. His father was a famous horse handler for the movies, and they have got this ranch, and they've done this, their family did this for, I don't know, a couple of generations where they've done this. And now Hollywood's just kind of done with them. And they're desperately trying to save this thing. It's 2 versions of the same story. It's just the whole Hollywood chews you up and spits you out thing, which, by the way, just this second, I realized that what the monster does is chew you up and spit out your bones. So this whole movie is about things that just chew you up and spit your bones out.
Chew you up and then spit you out. What was terrifying, and when the monster was at its best, is like when he would use the screams that it captured the screams of the people within him, and it's like mimic their screams, and it would fly over the house and like project those screams on. That shit was terrifying.
I think those were the actual screams. I think those people are digesting in its gullet.
Are you serious?
Screaming. Yeah, I think that's what's happening now. Because you see people in its terrifying. gullet.
Yeah, it's like being stuck in a parachute or something when they go in there and they're like climbing through it or whatever. And I still, like, at the beginning, I didn't know what I thought about that. Like, watching these people kind of go, it was almost like a different tone of what we were watching. You know, it was almost like a throwback to like a 50s monster movie of how they were eating them or whatever. And so I wasn't sure like what I thought about it, and I'm still kind of processing it. And it's one of those movies, you know, it's like when the first time I watched There Will Be Blood. You know, you watch this movie and it works on so many levels, but it takes you time to digest it to really understand why it affected you the way it did. And for me, Get Out is like that. It's like taking me time to digest it. And I realize it's such a rich movie on so many different levels, but the through line, surface level entertainment value, fun of the monster, I'm still like, I don't know if that really hit with me. And then the way the monster dies is kind of like that throwback to Jaws, where it swallows that, you know, balloon, and the balloon explodes and it blows it up in the size, kind of like when Jaws had the thing in his mouth and that thing blew up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very deliberate callback to Jaws. You
know, I thought that was cool and that was fun. And, you know, and I liked how Keke Palmer used her wits to take the picture of the thing. And, you know, and then also that Daniel was was heroic on the horse. But I did think he was a bit passive through the movie until the end.
That has been a repeated complaint about this movie, that he does play the character very sort of taciturn and passive. And I'm not sure if that was a choice of directing or if that was a choice of the actor wanting to play it that way. I don't know if it entirely works for that character to make him so passive and just sort of grumpy about everything that's happening, but not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, served to make the character of the sister vital to the movie, because without her, the movie could be pretty dour. But she's so charming and upbeat and sort of kind of an idiot, but a fun idiot. And I like fun idiots. And she really brought a breath of fresh air to the movie when she was on screen.
Yeah, because I feel like, you know, internal performances that are real subtle and intense, it doesn't mean there's not a volcano going off on the inside and you can feel it, right? You can see it through the intensity or whatever. What people tend to kind of disconnect from was when it seems passive, like it seems inactive. It's like it's given up.
Yeah, it's waiting for things to happen to you.
Waiting for things to happen. And that's when you start to lose kind of focus, because he's the hero. He's the guy you're seeing the movie through. And that kind of perform where you can't really grab on anything, you can't really find that emotional center to kind of pull you through. For me, like that, I did feel that a little bit. I did feel like it kind of stalled a little bit in that way.
Yeah, it's definitely not a perfect movie. I still think Get Out is his best movie. I think Us is his creepiest movie. I think the first 3/4 of that movie are incredibly creepy. Just the atmosphere of that film is so creepy. I did not love the twist of that movie. I thought the end of the movie didn't hold up as well as the first 3/4 had. And this, I think, is not particularly scary, not particularly creepy, but as you said, it's more of the kind of movie like the next day you're still thinking about it, like what it meant, and I'm hoping that with this movie, he has finished his evisceration of Hollywood trilogy, and his fourth movie will be something other than that. That he'll move on to another topic.
You feel like it's... I love that. I love that.
I feel like after this movie, I'm not sure what he would have left to say. And maybe he will. Maybe he'll make a fourth movie about it and it'll be amazing.
Dude, he's just scratching the surface, man. But those themes are universal, right? It's not just Hollywood. I mean, it's like those things, those glittery things that we're after. I mean, they can rot your soul at some point, and that's what he's kind of making a comment on. But I love it. I love that in his movies, and you know, I actually hope he continues with those themes and keeps expanding on them. Clint, did you see This Is Us?
I did. Yes.
What did you?
When you mean Us, not This Is Us, the television.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I get those confused. Between Get Out and Us, like what are your thoughts on those?
No question. Like Get Out is maybe like as close to a perfect horror movie as I can think of in the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty bonkers. And the end of us with the Hands Across America thing, I will admit, left me a little cold.
Yeah, I agree. The end is, as I said, not my favorite part. But the first 3/4 of that movie, before you find out what's going on, is incredibly atmospheric and creepy.
When the two families just sitting in the living room talking. It's insane.
Oh yeah. Yep. I would like to see him do just a straight, like, take that chimp scene, not the content within it, but take that how he constructed that, where that was pure horror, and then take like the first 2 acts of This Is Us, and then like really just be like, all right, y'all want me to scare the shit out of you? Like, I'm gonna flex my horror muscle and make a fun movie that will scare the fuck out of you, because I think he has, he's like Kubrick, in The Shining, right? Like The Shining had a lot of big ideas crammed in that movie, but on the entertainment, just straight terror fun level, it just really worked. It really paid off.
Yeah.
Wes really wants the audience to watch NBC drama This Is Us.
Did I say it again?
Yep.
Oh my God. We don't have a top 5, do we? We could just do our top 3, Jordan Peele.
No, I would, I'd be curious so this is our October scary movies series, right? We're going to do 4 scary movies. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So like, if we're going to do that, then, what is the scariest scene in the movie we just discussed? What's the one that, so I already said mine, the one with the feet sticking out past the couch while the kid hides under the table is, I think, by far the scariest fucking scene in this movie.
It's, for me, the scariest moment is when the monkey leans up against the ape leans up against the couch. He already did his, terror, and takes his mask off and he's breathing and he's kind of looking around, and he slowly comes around and makes eye contact with the kid in the thing. And that to me was my scariest moment. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And that whole sequence was masterfully done. So I don't know if we would consider that the same scene.
I think it's a different moment. I mean, they're in the same scene, but for me, the moment was the monkey pounding its fist just out of sight, and you just see those little legs twitching every time the fists come crashing down. Yeah. I was just like, Jesus Christ. Like, I can watch a dude chainsawing another dude in half and not feel as viscerally disturbed as that scene where there's no blood. Like, there's no gore. It's just a monkey pounding its fist just out of sight and these little girl legs twitching every time the fists come down. Like, that hit me way harder than a dude getting chainsawed in half.
I wouldn't say for scary, because I think those are the scariest scenes, but for me, the creepiest scene, and the scene that had the image that really struck me, and that I think when I think of the movie, the image that comes up a lot is when the poor girl that was getting, smashed with the slippers, when she's in the bleachers. And you see her with the veil over her face, and she has a picture of herself on the shirt. And then the breeze blows, and you see like a little bit of like the skeleton of her face.
Yeah.
That disturbed me, and it was such a power. It says so much. It was such a powerful visual within there. That was the creepiest one for me.
That was pretty fucking creepy.
And when I think about, like, when I have to look at what I like most is, I like the creepy, over the pure terror. And then, the creepy has to build to the pure terror, but I'm a creepy movie, spooky movie guy.
No, I agree. I'm a much bigger fan of slowly revealed, chill down your spine kind of horror, rather than a guy gets his head chopped off with an axe in every scene kind of horror.
And that's what I love. That's what was masterful about the whole chimpanzee scene on stage, because so many lesser filmmakers or so many lesser writers would have told that scene like linear from beginning, middle, and end. Yeah. The monkey's there. The monkey freaks out, starts attacking these people. You see the gore, you see the violence, you see that, right? But Jordan starts it at the end of the scene. Yeah. He starts it at the end where the havoc has already happened, and the kid's underneath the table, and then you just learn like pieces of like, oh, wait, is it a birthday party? Oh, wait, no, this is a soundstage. They're on the thing. Oh, this is actors. Oh, he's ripping these people's face off. And then you see the guy try to run through the thing, and the chimp sees it and goes after and beats him. And so then you're like, holy shit. Now you're in through the eyes of the kid underneath this table, and it builds all the way up to this point to where the monkey is sitting there and he's breathing and he's catching his breath, and he looks around and makes eye contact with the kid, and he stops. And then it's like, boom, it's just there. That's just so well done, so well shot.
It is a good lesson for writers. It might be a good exercise to write the entire scene, but then the next good exercise is cutting out everything you don't need. You know, maybe you have the idea for the scene of the chimp going nuts, and you know, in its linear fashion, that's how it comes into your head. But once you've written it down and you really look at it, how much of this scene do I actually need to tell this story? And you can trim it back to just what you need, and you wind up with an amazing scene like that, where the only thing, like he does, he starts it at the end. The scene starts at the end rather than at the beginning, which that's all he needed.
I think I'm going to be Trevor the Chimp for Halloween.
Are you going to pull somebody's face off?
Yeah. No, I'm going to walk around with a face. Like I'll be as a chimp and then walk around with the face and see if anybody gets it.
I mean, that's pretty fucking dark. I like it.
It's really dark. We should do our Halloween double feature dressed as Trevor the Chimp on the thing.
The really awful thing is you'll be taking your kids trick-or-treating, you'll be wearing that, you'll knock on a door, and some lady with no face is going to open the door and go, oh my God.
So thank you guys for hanging out with us. This was such a good fun time talking about one of our favorite directors of all time, Jordan Peele. Please like and subscribe and support us, because we want to support you with this mind-breaking, developing content that we're putting forth.
Hey, man, I'm just appreciative that you drug yourself off of a film set where you've probably been for 16 hours today and drug your ass into your hotel room and took the time to do this. I mean, that is the kind of dedication that deserves a like and a subscribe.
You know what, Ty, what I talk about when I feel like I've really seen a movie that's saying something, when I feel like I'm a better person for having seen it. Do you think our 8 Patreon members, do you think that they're better people for having seen each episode of Ty and That Guy?
I don't know. Are they better? I mean,
do you think it brings them closer to God?
Well, I mean, are you God?
No.
I think it brings them, every episode we do brings them 1 hour closer to death. So.
What if I started healing people, like on the podcast? Like people would call in and they would have. Anyway, that's silly. Okay,
no, that would be great, because I have some shit I need healed. So,
well, I'm here for you, buddy.
Yeah, I got this bad ankle. I've had this bad ankle since I was in high school. So yeah, you got them healing energies. Send them through the phone line, baby.
Get some Miyagi hands on those things. All right, thanks, Clint. Thanks, Joseph.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.